Hi,
Hi,
Bunty.
hi, Sujatha. It's so good to have you back on the podcast. And for the viewers who are new, Sujatha and I had kind of co-created the initial many podcasts. We covered a lot of ground, different topics. We went from audio to video. We fumbled, but I think we managed to survive quite a long time. Can you tell us what you've been doing in the last year and a half? The world has been going topsy-turvy, but what have you been up to, Sujatha?
Well, I couldn't agree more for the reconnection that we have now because it still feels like when we were in the middle of the pandemic, or not in the middle, I think beginning of the pandemic, if I'm not
Yes.
wrong, somewhere around that time.
Yeah.
And you had this idea, and we just, kind of went ahead with it. And yeah, it will be 2 years. So
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
nice that you ground and all the people that you had on what you discussed with them about the vulnerabilities and other aspects that come with it. Where I am, so last year and a half has been quite interesting on many levels. Uh, Post COVID, I think 2021 was a very different in terms of a lot of things: work, relationships, personal goals, what you want to do, what you don't want to
Yeah.
do. Some things were forced, self-forced, and some things were idealized. So it is somewhere being in between them, I would say. I will qualify as a counselor in June this year, and I'm
Oh,
looking forward to it.
very good.
So that will start a different chapter of my life, which I
True.
feel very privileged, very lucky to be in that stage in my life, in the age I am in as well.
Yeah.
So that is something I'm looking forward to. So COVID has also been a game changer in many aspects. A couple of very dear relationships were salvaged. I didn't
Oh,
lose
very
much, if
good.
I may say. Yeah.
Very good.
Some very dear relationships were salvaged. It could not have been possible if COVID hadn't happened.
Ah,
So yeah, I know. I mean, COVID has been mixed for most of us. Uh, I think for me, if I have to talk about loss, yes, there was a temporary loss of work, but
yeah.
I managed to salvage that last year. But a very key relationship was salvaged, which kind of um, gives me hope for the rest of my life, if I may say that.
Wonderful.
Yeah, yeah.
In fact, that is
That,
the
that,
that is the first thought that's running in my head. Most of us are quite reluctant to see our blessings in this time of COVID because uh, a lot of people lost their loved ones. A lot of people went through terrible times recovering from COVID. Uh, the panic was worldwide. And I think nowhere did we see any bit of good news coming in from any quarter. But having said that, I think very often I at least personally felt that this time to reflect uh, as a person and as a member of the human race. It's been both good and bad because I am quite disappointed that the leaders of the world all over have not really changed their ways because they are the ones who can decide that we as a collective can start looking at different things. But
hmm,
having said that, I found individuals like you. We spoke a couple of times. I think in the last 1.5 years, not very often, but at least once every couple of months. People like
right.
you, other people that I know who are individuals who started working in ways that they can give back to the world. I think I saw hope not in the traditional leadership, as they call it, but normal human beings, people who have been hurt at some point of time in various ways, not necessarily relationships only, but by any loss of any kind. I found their kindness and compassion is is not enough, of course, because there's just too much of suffering in the world. But it is very solid. So I wanted to talk a little about your own reason to pick up counseling as a way of giving back, because you told me a little about it. Would you want to share
Yeah.
something? Why did that happen, and what really prompted you to walk? It's a difficult path. All said and done, I'm sure you shared some stories which are very difficult even to recollect sometimes, honestly. So, without
Yeah.
going into too many gory details of the problems that people face there, I would want you to just take us through a bit of what prompted you to pick up this difficult choice, actually.
Um, I'm not sure if I'll really use the word difficult. I mean, respectfully, of course, because my whole direction of giving back uh, came at the back of a very tragic event, a bereavement that happened to me and my family. It will be 7 years this June. So I lost somebody very dear and very close to me,
Mm,
and uh, that was also my first experience with loss and grief. Up until then, the only experience I've had with death has been the loss of a of a grandparent who's lived a
like,
good life, well into their 80s, kind of a thing. And I was perhaps in my early 20s when it happened, so it didn't really register that much, because I think it's also something which is which to me at that time felt it's a natural part of life.
yeah,
you know I was 20 years younger probably, or even 25 years younger when this thing happened. I don't recollect me being very upset or feeling terrible or any of those things. I mean, of course I was sad, but I felt she had a
it was
good life,
manageable. Yeah,
and death happens, and that's the only thing that's really there. And then after that, life was pretty uneventful, if I may say that. you know so again, on the back of this bereavement that I experienced, uh, literally every aspect of my life turned on its head. Close relationships, financials, my career, my marriage, uh, everything seemed very different. uh, I mean, there is a part of me which will be who I was when this before the event happened, and there is a part of me who is now after the event that has happened. Uh, and the last 7 years has given me the opportunity to try and make both of them coexist, and trying to accept the old me and also welcoming the new me, if that makes sense.
wow. Yeah, it does. It
Uh,
does.
yeah. Oh, but it is such a struggle, Bunty. It's like picking up garbage from your mind. It has not been easy. I mean, I was like, is this what I've been carrying all along? Oh, so when this bereavement happened, I mean, like, I live in the UK and I'm visiting my family. For the first time in 3 years, I'm spending time with my mom, dad, and my sister. Again, very grateful for this chance that I've got. Uh, so when the bereavement happened, we received a lot of support from local community, the hospitals, and everything. And I saw how we were supported as a family during the whole
Yeah.
process. Uh, and that kind of inspired me to give back something. You
Uh-huh.
know, I mean, the easiest way would have been to set up a direct debit for £50 a month and get going with your life. Sometimes throwing money on something is the easiest way, and also an easy way of telling yourself, I'm doing my bit,
Yeah.
but you're not really doing your bit.
Yeah.
you know so I received therapy on the back of this bereavement, and I received therapy for over 3 years. So at the end of the therapy, it helped me to recognize who I am as a person. It didn't minimize the bereavement that happened, but who I became on the back of that bereavement and who I really am, going back to my early years and my childhood and everything. Uh, like each week, pretty much, I was exploring and discovering something new about myself. Some moments it was great pride and joy. Some moments I just wanted to disappear, but I kept at it. And then, of course, on the back of that, I thought, let me train and at least get some basic qualification because I wanted to help support the charity that helped us in some way as a volunteer or any manner possible. Um, and then I enrolled for this basic course, trying to really understand what counseling is all about. And in a way, it was a feeling of providence, if I may say that, because back in the early 90s, I did enroll to do my graduation in psychology and history. I did do that, but I never got a chance to really get into working in the counseling space because life took a different direction. So when I enrolled for my basic course, just to give me an understanding as to what it is, how is this something that I really want to do, and of course I wanted to do it, and I'm very fortunate that I have a uh, very caring tutor who felt that I have it in me to get into this profession and really have that empathy and provide people that space to really be themselves and where I can support them possibly. So yeah, one thing led to another, and if all goes well, this June I'll qualify and I'll probably start working independently. And of course, there is a part of my time that I don't intend to monetize, which I'll continue to support working either in the charity space or doing something similar.
This is so beautiful because one of the thoughts that was running in my head when you were speaking, uh, because it was a longish answer, it kind of helped to reflect on the various aspects that you were covering. Uh, Not only were you talking about your contribution, what you're planning to do, but what led to the contribution was somebody else's contribution to your own healing. And not only that you named it like that, but it was very apparent in the way you were looking back and the look on your face that of gratitude of in fact actually there's nothing that can be said because it's like so big. So my question to you, have you ever mulled over the fact that suffering was necessary?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, see, even before this event happened, I knew that it is all about suffering. I knew it from a theoretical perspective. It was nice to talk
uh,
about it, add to social conversations, and really look smug and content while you're
yeah,
talking about it, not really understanding what suffering means.
true.
I mean, just this kind of suffering, the kind of bereavement that happens.
Okay.
Yes, I have mulled over it because if this event had not happened, I wouldn't be the person who I am today and who I wish I want to become over the coming few years. I mean, there isn't
Yeah.
no timeline as such. It's a daily effort, isn't it?
Yeah.
But yeah, I think this suffering was needed and it is life changing.
uh, I want to give you a bit of a context and then move on to my next question.
Mm-hmm.
I have friends that I made through my meditation practice. One of them had lost their kid within 2 months or 4 months of uh, he being born, if I think so, if I remember correctly. And the husband and wife were speaking, and both of them are practitioners. So he said a very beautiful thing. In fact, that was the entry point of our friendship. So I didn't know him. Like he was just in the same course, serving the course that I was sitting. And he
Mm.
ended up saying that on the day that they came back home after uh, after all the things were done, he told his wife, "Dukh hai," and she ended up saying, smiling, "Dukh to hai." And he says that is the day we learned the first noble truth. And they are like really good practitioners. Like they've done long courses and a lot of work on themselves. But when he said this whole impact of this common humanity that we all share, Madhav, I just, and he's a guy who's very matter of factly and not even a guy who will be prone to showing any kind of emotion, or he's very, very earnest, very wanting to learn the secret of life and himself and those kind of characteristics. But when he said that, I felt that this is such a huge gift of friendship that he offered by just narrating this two lines. So my question to you is a little uh, away from this context, because you also said the same context. But I want you to probe within your mind and let me know whether, we think that this is suffering because it is so big, because it is quantifiable, it is the loss of a loved one. Uh, it is unbearable very often. At
Hmm.
least momentarily, though, yes, there are moments where you just feel that it's not worth it. Uh, but I find that one of the learnings that I've had is the smallest of things also. When we are, suppose I decided to speak to you today itself, like we decided to do this around 6 hours back, and one after another, we just kept getting stuck into something or the other, something or the other. I had actually
Hmm.
gone to another place because the background was nicer. I wanted to actually do it then. But you said half an hour, then I said 1.5 hours, then you said 2 hours. So this went on till now. But I think both of us were quite chilled about it, open to the idea of that this may not work out like we thought that it would.
Hmm.
And in fact, I didn't even have time to have my cup of chai with that friend where I'd gone, because he said, why aren't you spending 5 minutes more? I said, I have just run out of time. So some other day. And to come back to what I'm asking you is, here is one little episode. There's nothing. Both of us are willing to do it. We both have the wherewithal, we have the technology, we have the, luckily, we have the tuning with each other to start without planning too much on this. We are going impromptu with this because we've done this before. All of it is fixed. It is as good as, in a very cliched manner, a match made in heaven, all kinds of things in place. And yet, and yet, it didn't go like we planned. So
Yeah.
we do not see that as suffering because we choose to be happy and wise about it. But otherwise, this could have been, this is enough to give us a headache. You just keep on creating more acidity inside, saying, yeah, she had said 3 o'clock, yes, and suddenly she's saying no. You could have said, but I offered half an hour later, but he is the one who dropped out. Not, both of us have could have uh, misunderstood the circumstance. I'm not even saying each other. So why is this not suffering according to you? Isn't it beautiful that we are able to look at it in a mature way, a wiser
It
way,
is.
where we are accepting the facticity that it cannot be done at the time that we decided? Is there something to
Yeah.
look there?
No, it's very interesting you say that because I did think about it a couple of times that, Arey yaar, I've been rescheduling this, but I was not stressed about it. And I remember in the past when I was in a different time zone, there would be at least a couple of sorries from both ends. We didn't
Yeah,
apologize today, if you
I think
recollect.
I didn't even think of it. I'm sorry. It didn't cross my mind
Yeah,
that I
I
have to
mean,
feel.
exactly, right? No, I'm saying this because that's where we have reached.
Yeah,
I think I don't know, the word that comes to mind to your question is the intent is there.
yeah.
I mean, like you said, we never planned on doing this, but here we are doing this impromptu and taking it from here. And it didn't feel like suffering or it didn't feel like torture because it's a very familiar space. We know each other, we've done this before. And if not today, you know that you would do it tomorrow, but we will do it in this week sometime. So yeah, I think sometimes the familiarity makes a big difference, doesn't it?
But familiarity with what is my question then? Familiarity with each other is one part. But I'm saying with the fact that we were not able to do it the way we wanted to. I'm saying the uncertainty part of it has been
Um,
befriended internally. Because the same
I think
thing with somebody else, if we are worked up, so we haven't really solved the problem.
no, I think it is just the acceptance that you have with certain individuals that you don't have with others, right?
I'm saying beyond that also. That I agree that that part is definitely one big part of what you're saying. But I am saying, say, tomorrow you were doing this with somebody else, or I was doing it with somebody else. I had episodes, you know this, because initially, the moment our link was shut off, my Wi Fi would go off. I didn't even know that the recording that we had done would get processed or not.
A lot.
So at that point of time, I always had a smile on my face that it actually boils down to luck. If it's going to happen, it's going to happen in a certain manner, and you're sitting and it's just going from 63, 64, 65%,
Yeah.
waiting, waiting, waiting. And just because you're waiting and you're not hassled, till date, none of the episodes, and now we are talking 250 videos or more, which is phenomenal because even I get like, when did this happen? But not a single episode has been cancelled because of technology issues. And here, on a daily basis, my Wi-Fi has some problem, this problem, that problem happening. Now, lesser, of course, with technology improving even in our context, but it's been fairly easy in comparison.